Welcome to Mini Moderns. My name's Simone and thank you for joining me on my tiny corner on the miniature interweb, where we're here to think big, build small. So let's get into it. Welcome back to part 3 of our beach and summer accessory series. If you've not checked out part 1 and 2, go ahead and do that, but you can watch these in any order. So this was inspired by a prompt from my miniature prompt journal, which is available on Amazon as a book like this or as a printable from my Etsy store. And the prompt for us was a beach bag. And from that beach bag, I decided to go ahead and make a cute little mini scene and accessories. So with the prompt book, you write the start date, the date you finish, what scale you're using. Is absolutely fantastic. I love using it. I also use my note and sketchbook, which is also available on Amazon as well. It's where I keep all of my ideas or my jotting down, because normally I end up with scraps of paper everywhere. So I just wanted something for my dollhouse, for my miniatures. So go get yourself one of those as well, guys. So the beach bag was the main theme and we're gonna get to that. But we have made a beach towel, a beach ball, and today we're going to be making the bucket and spade. Yes, my friends, I'm going to show you a few techniques on how to make the bucket and spade. I hope you find this interesting and fun. Before we get started, as usual, I want to thank everyone who's joined me over on Patreon. I do a mini Monday post every week to keep you guys up to date with what is going on. And also thank you to everybody who has joined my miniature Facebook group, Think Big, Build Small. Huge massive shout out goes out to Suki Taylor for being part of my mini structures on Patreon. Thank you so much for your continued support. It means so much to me. Now let's get on with the video. So bucket and spade, you say? Here she goes again. Okay, so first I start off making some templates for the bucket and the base of the bucket. And for our first technique, we're going to be using air dry clay. Daz air dry clay. I love this stuff. Right, so to get prepped, we're going to need our clay, a rolling pin, some kind of circle cutter if you've got one, some coffee stirrers or lollipop sticks that you can use as thickness guides, or if you've got a pasta maker, that would be great. Some gloves, because this does get a little bit messy, some toothpicks, a crafting blade, and of course your templates, and a little beaker of water. And we've got everything we need to do technique number 1. So if your clay isn't already conditioned, let's do that to make sure it's in a nice workable state. And then once that's done, we can roll that out. I'm using my large lollipop sticks as a thickness guides, and if you want them even thicker, you can just double up your sticks, and they're just a really good way if you haven't got a pasta maker. I do have a pasta maker now, so I'll be using that in the future, but sometimes if you don't want to get out your machine, this is a great way. So we're just going to roll this out, make sure it's nice and smooth before we start cutting. I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to put on my bucket template. I've made this a little bit larger than I need it to be so I can cut it off if I don't need it. So there's wriggle room with this. So now I'm going to use my crafting blade or X-Acto knife just to cut all the way around this template. I did make a circle based template, but then my circle cutter here is actually the perfect side for what I need. So I'm just going to go ahead and use that instead. And once this is done, I can remove my shape from the clay. I always put the clay that I'm not using straight back into the bag and seal it, because this thing does dry. So I do not want that to happen. So always remember to seal away your air dry clay. Oh my god, rhyming. Let's seal away the air dry clay so we can use it another day. Hey! Okay, anyway, we've got our pieces. This is where I make the slip, which is clay and water mixed together to make a paste, which makes air dry clay stick together so well. So I'll go ahead and mix this up until it's a nice paste. This should do the job. Not too thick, not too runny. Cool. And as you can see on the bucket itself, I've put some little score lines. That just helps it grip a little bit better. So when you're using air dry clay and you want to stick together, it's basically just like using glue. Just put your score lines on there and stick your pieces together. And if you find that your clay starts drying out, you can always add a little bit of water on your finger and then just smooth it out. I'm now going to add the main piece of my bucket to the base. I'm just going to do it all the way around and just pinch and press it in as I go. It's like doing a mini pottery but without the wheel. So you really want to take your time and you want to see where it lines up. And remember, with air dry clay, you can really sand this down. So don't be worried about too many bumps or anything that's not smooth. So I'm just going to cut some of this off because it's a little bit larger than I need it to be. I'm going to throw my extra pieces into my slip because that will make some more glue for me. So now this, yeah, it's looking a little bit better. It's a bit tighter and I can just pinch and push this together. As I said, you want to take your time with this. You don't have to rush it. I'm just going to use my blade here to scoop it up. Just so I can get it a bit closer. I could leave it on the tile, but I feel like I can have a bit more control on this little blade. And I've also got a silicone brush that I use to smooth and paste things together, using a little bit of water when I need. But the main thing now is to seal any gaps and the creases that were made in this. I'm just going to use my wooden peg just to make sure that the opening is nice and circular. I just smooth and pinch around it just to take the shape. And here's how it's looking so far. It takes a lot of sculpting. It's definitely worth it, but any cracks I just fill with the slip, and then when it dries, as I said, I will be sanding this down. So that's looking pretty damn good so far, guys. I'm just going to set my bucket aside while I work on the next piece of the bucket, which is the trimming or the rim that you'd get on the top of the bucket. This is a bit of a gamble, but I'm going to make what you would call a snake of clay. I'm just going to roll it out with my fingers and keep on rolling until I get a really, really thin line that I can place around the top of the bucket. I think I'm happy with this little piece here. I can smooth things out once I've stuck it on, but I think this shall do. I'm going to scoop up the bucket so I can hold it a bit closer and see what I'm doing, because golly, I'm blind as a bat. Imagine working on miniatures when you can't see shite. Right, I'm going to put some slip on the outside of the bucket because that's where I'm going to put that little snake of clay. I'm going to put that around the edge. Are you guys getting the vision? Are you understanding what I'm trying to do? I hope you are. So I'm going to put that all the way around, and then I'm just going to add this. As I said, it's light glue, so you can just stick that on there. And you can change it and tweak it as well. It doesn't just like stick solid, so it's really handy. So I'm going to put this all the way around the bucket. Okay, so that is now around the edge of my bucket. As you can see, we've got some little bumps and stuff in there, but we're going to smooth those out using my silicone brush. I'm going to go all the way around the bucket, smoothing out the gaps and reshaping it so it looks exactly how I want it to look. This does take quite a bit of time because you have to sculpt and refine a lot, but if you do enjoy making things from scratch and seeing the end results, then it's definitely worth making your own molds and shapes. But like I said in my other series, a lot of the minis that I'm going to be making in this mini series will be available for sale. Some will be individual items and some will come as the whole bulk of everything that you're going to see made in this series. So we've already got the beach towels that I made. They're available in my Etsy store right now, and some of these buckets will be available as well, so you definitely want to keep a lookout. But if you want to hang on to get the full set, there'll only be a limited amount of them made, but trust me, they'll be well worth it, so keep your eyes peeled. So let's get back to the sculpting. I think the molding and shaping is very nearly done. I've got the circle how I want it. It is fitting nicely. So, oh gosh, let me not crush the whole thing, right? So that's looking good. So I can actually leave that to dry now. And then when it's dried, we can smooth over it and sand it down and get all the cracks and creases out of it. Perfecto. So while that's drying, I'm going to show you another style of bucket. This one I call my sandcastle bucket. I'm going to roll it out and do exactly the same thing that we did before. When we come to the shaping, this is where it gets a little bit different. We're going to make ourselves a little ridge at the top to represent the castle. So I kind of eyeball where I want my little ridges to go using my silicone brush. And then basically I'm just going to cut some little notches out of the top. So you see here, just put my blade through there and try and equally space it out, going all the way around. And then I'm going to just take out every other piece like this. Just go over and scoop that out. Just pop it out Boom. I said every other piece, just take it out like this. Be very gentle because you don't want to break the piece before, because then you have to start again. Trust me, I've tried. Now we have the shape made. We're just gonna make the bucket just like we did before. I'm gonna wrap this around, but I always do a test to make sure it's the right size. So slowly going around the bucket. I want to make sure that the gaps in the bucket line up so I don't have two pieces the same next to each other. So just check in. So I'm just going to cut off a little bit here. Boom. So we're going to have gap, then another piece. Excellent. Excellent. You can go in the slip. Let you settle down in there. Perfect. You never have to waste clay. You never have to waste it. So just doing another test. The tighter it is, the better, because it is clay. You can squeeze it and mold it. I'm just going to score where the pieces are going to connect like this, just using my blade to score, and then I'm going to put my slip on it and then mold it into the shape just like we did before. Now it's time to let my little babies dry, and while they're drying, we're going to make the spades. To get started, we're going to just cut around the templates, and if you don't have a template and you want to try this at home, you can freehand and just kind of draw the shape of the spade into the clay and then just cut them out. So once we've cut out our shape, we're going to use a hole cutter again to make a hole at the top for the handle. And then I use a toothpick to kind of reshape how I want the actual handle to be. So I just press the toothpick into the clay and kind of mold the clay around it. So with the air dry clay, I tried with two options. One, leaving the toothpick there and just covering it completely with clay, and the other version, like what I'm showing now, is just to get the basic shape so you have a ridge in the middle of your handle. So if you see what I'm doing here, you just keep pressing it in and then folding it around so you've got that ridge up on the side. So now I'm going to turn my spade over so it's on top of this stick, and this again is to start molding and sculpting the clay. I'm just going to take my time and pinch and sculpt around the toothpick. I'm also going to cut the toothpick so it's the same height as the handle. So I've just turned it over so you can see here. I've just cut that so it's the same size as the handle. At this stage, if you wanted, you can cover the whole thing with your clay or just leave it open. So where the stick is for me, this is going to be the back of the spade, because like I said before, I wanted that ridge at the back. So I'm going to leave the toothpick here just to help me mold around it. So now I can turn that back over. Now we go back to sculpting, and we've got something to hold our handle in place now. I'm going to use my silicone brush to help me with the sculpting. I'm going to use the base of the brush and the main part of the brush just to help me sculpt and reshape this. I need to prop it up a little bit at the sides, and if you've got any reference pictures, this is a great time to kind of see how you want your spade to look, because you know with buckets and spades they come in all shapes and sizes. It's starting to take shape, so I'm going to actually have to let this dry, and then I'll do some more reshaping once it's dried. And while that's drying, I'm going to make a few more using the same technique and making some different shapes for the handle holes, you know, just mixing and blending. And also the base of the spades will be different, so I'm going to have some that are flat and some that are clawed. And when I say clawed, I mean like a rake. So I cut some notches into the clay to make the gap, and then use a toothpick to kind of mold the shape over and leave it to set and dry in that style. I will show you another technique when the clay is dry and how I make the rake. So here we've got a few things that I'm going to leave to set and dry, and then we can get to sanding and re-sculpting. So here is a flathead spade that I've left to dry, and I just drew on where I wanted my notches to be for the rake, and I'm going to just use some sanding paper and just sand into those little gaps to make the rake. This is just another technique that I've just found quite useful if you don't want to kind of sculpt the claws already in there. This is another way that works quite well. I'm going to go ahead and sand down all of my pieces now and get them reshaped to my taste and liking. And that includes the buckets as well. We're just going in there with the sandpaper and smoothing out any bumps and kinks that we have in there. The sanding is very nice on this air dry clay. It gets things away quite smoothly. I would suggest that you wear a mask as well when you're sanding the air dry clay, because you do get a lot of dust and particles flying around. So get yourself a mask when you're doing this part, because you can see the amount that comes off and you don't want to be inhaling all of that. So I'm going to just take my time and smooth this out as neatly as possible, and then we'll move on to the next stage. Sanding done. Now I'm going to use my handheld drill to make some holes for where the handles will be. I lightly penciled where I want my holes to be, and I'm just going to very gently drill through this because I do not want this to snap and break. Okay, so I'm going to put holes on either side. Now that that's done, it's time for me to get some white acrylic paint and paint all of my pieces. I do this because I'm going to be using some UV resin to seal my buckets and spades, and usually when I've tried UV resin on air dry clay, it just absorbs straight into the clay. It changes the color for one, and it doesn't give it the water resistance that I'm looking for. So I do a layer of the acrylic paint, and then I apply the UV resin. That just makes my buckets durable and water resistant. And I also use the white acrylic because if I do want to go ahead and maybe use some chalk pastels or anything, it's got a nice layer of the acrylic paint first. And guys, I'm using my heat gun, so you guys don't have to wait forever. So I did a good couple of layers with my acrylic paint. It's completely dried now, and now I'm going to use my chalk pastels to paint over them. So the first bucket I'm going to be making pink, so I'm just going to scrape a bit of the pink, scrape a bit of the white off, and then just add a bit of water to it to get my paint. And now I can paint the bucket. I also use my wooden peg dolls. They are so handy just to hold things in place. Don't forget to check out the link in the description for everything that I'm going to be using in today's video. And also don't forget to hit that like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video so far. Leave me your comments, guys. You know I'm here for it. And I use the same technique to paint the spades as well. And I also use a yellow color to do one of my buckets and some of the spades. Now with all the base painting done, we can add our handles. I'm just going to use some paper clips to do this. I also use my wooden peg dolls to help me keep the rounded shape. So I just put my paper clip around the doll and then press it onto my surface just so it captures the shape. Then I measure it up against my bucket to see where I want the handle to be. I now use my cutting and shaping tools to trim down the paper clip and adjust it to where I want my hooks to be so that they can fit into the hole. I then put my paper clip into the hole so that we have a handle. I remove any excess pieces of paper clip just using my cutters again, and then boom, we have ourselves a beautiful bucket with a handle that can move. This air dry bucket and spade set is coming together, guys. Look at this. Can you actually believe we did this from scratch? There we go. Now it's time for me to add some finishing touches to the design, and I'm going to hand paint. Yes, I said it. I'm going to put some nice little flowers on both of the buckets. Really simple, not too detailed, very, very simple. And now it's time to hit these bad boys up with some of my UV resins. Look how adorable. You know what we like to say, guys? Looking good, my friend. I do have some isopropyl alcohol in this little beaker here because I'm using a brush and I want to be able to clean my brush when I'm finished. I just put a tiny blob of my UV resin on my silicone mat. I should have really put it in a beaker as well. It's so much better. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and paint both of my buckets with some UV resin and let them cure. And here are the final results of my bucket and spades made from air dry clay. They've come out really nice. As I said, they are waterproof, so you can fill your buckets with water. I can just go ahead and show you there's water in here now. I'm going to pour it into the other one. So that layer of acrylic paint, let it dry, paint it as you want, then put the UV resin on there. Perfect, guys. And now you've got your nice little set. Now it's time to move on to our next option. So the next option is polymer clay. Da, 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 da. I've used a few different options for this. I've got the Sculpey Primo here. You just got to follow the instructions when it comes to baking polymer clay, because this one you don't let air dry, you have to bake it. So just like before, I have my templates, I cut them out, and then I just make the shape in the same way that I did before. The difference when I make this bucket is instead of using some slip, I'll be using some liquid Sculpey, which is basically liquid clay, and I've got the transparent one like this one here. I'm just going to put this on and use that as my glue. You don't even have to use this as well, because with polymer clay it sticks really well together, but I like to use this to give it the extra hold. So like before, we're going to just shape and mold our buckets to our preference, still using my wooden pegs to help me get the shape that I need. I also try a different style to make the handles by using some tiny little circle cutters and make some little circles from the polymer clay, and then I'm going to stick these on the side of the bucket. So as I said, they stick very well together, polymer clay on polymer clay. So I'm going to put these circles roughly halfway across the bucket so they measure up the same on both sides. So it looks a little something like this. And now just to pinch down the bottom of the circle a bit more so it's a more clean seam, I'm just going to use my silicone brush and just pinch that down and blend that into the bucket. I'll be using my paper clips again for the handle, or if you wanted, you could use polymer clay itself. Just make a nice little snake of clay and attach that to it. But for now, I'm just going to pierce the holes before I put it in to cook. And with the white polymer clay, you can paint it before or after you've baked it. Right now I'm just cleaning it. I'm just using a cotton bud with a tiny amount of isopropyl alcohol just to get rid of any fingerprints or dust or lint or anything that might have been picked up before we paint and before we bake, and it's absolutely safe to do that. So with the white polymer clay, I'm actually going to be using some of my chalk pastels to paint it before I put it in the oven, and then you can give it another layer afterwards. With this bucket, I just wanted to show another technique on how you can make the buckets, and if you're using white polymer clay, how you can paint them. And just like before, you can paint and style and have the buckets however you like. Same with the spades. But now I'm going to show you another technique with polymer clay that has already got the colour, so you don't have to bother with the painting at all. So last year, one of my sisters got me this set of polymer clay that I haven't got around to using, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be perfect for what I want to do now. So there is a huge range of colors in this set, and it's really good clay. I've really enjoyed working with it. So right now it's a case of if you've got the color in mind that you want, you just pick out the color, or you just blend two colors together, and we get to making our buckets. Instructions, all that come with it. It's absolutely perfect. And just like before, we're going to be using the same templates to make our buckets and spades. And if you remember in my previous video, I made a beach ball with yellow, pink and green, so I want the bucket set to match. I've already made two of the bucket shapes, but just like before, I used the template, cut around it, used the cutter to make the base. Everything is exactly the same to get the basic structure. I also found a cool technique if the bucket isn't quite the shape you want. I have a circular wooden dowel that I just basically roll my bucket around, and it just gets out any kinks if you don't want to dip in the side of the bucket. So I found that this really helps as well. So that's just another useful tip if you're making the bucket and it's not quite going the shape you want. A little wooden dowel and just gently rolling it so it gets any kinks out of the bucket. And with all of the different styles of bucket, it does take a lot of time to get the right shape, but it's definitely worth it in the end. And remember, once you've made them, you can sand them and file them down if there's any little kinks or bumps that you don't like. But look, a bucket! How about 3 buckets? Yeah, time to clean these up. And for those of you who've been around for any amount of time, you know that I love to bedazzle things, make things look cute and good and realistic. So why not with my buckets? I didn't have to paint or get the colors because that was already pre-made with the polymer clay. But this is something I was so excited to do, guys. I'm going to put 3D animals. Yes, 3D animals on the bouquets. Yeah. I'm going to put the reverse colors because you know it's a whole set and I want it to look cool. Can you guess what I'm going to be making on this first pink bucket? Can you guess? Can you guess? Can you guess? It's a circle. Yes. I'm not going to tell you. I want to tell you. What's that? 10 seconds. Guess what it's going to be? Write in the comments before you see it. What's it going to be, guys? What's it going to be? If you guessed it right, I will know because you would have said it in the comments because you got this far. First of all, you're a legend. Hello. But yeah, guys, it's a little turtle. A little damn turtle. I have never worked on anything so small ever. Like the camera can't even pick it up. That's how tiny this little shinting is. So small. But yes, I wanted our buckets to look funky and cool, so I made some sea creatures to go on them. So this first one is a turtle. So guys, I'm gonna get that and I'm gonna stick it on the bucket. And right now, nothing has been baked. This is all raw clay that we're working with right now. I'm telling you, trying to add these tiny details was a strain on the eyes. I felt like I was 85 years old. Couldn't see a thing. But look, we got ourselves a nice little turtle and now we can stick it on our bucket. And like all of the other buckets, I'll be using my paper clips as the handle. But before we bake it, I do need to pierce the holes through it. So just like before, this is so much easier. I mean, I could wait for it to dry and bake it and drill a hole, but no, I wanted to do it this way just in case it cracked the other way. So this is perfectly fine. Now I'm going to just use a little bit of my liquid Sculpey as my glue. Just going to put a small little splodge of where I want my little 3D animal to go. I think that would be about right. And now I'm just going to just use my blade to scoop that up off my tile. And then we'll stick that on nice and steady. I'm going to try a technique of baking or semi-baking things and see how that goes as well. So this is very interesting because you don't want to smudge or crush anything. So it's very much taking your time. Look. Oh my goodness. Look. Yes, I'm totally making some for myself as well. Absolutely. Making some for me and my kids. They were so thrilled. I was like, Mummy, how did you do that? And talking of kids, they love to craft too. My son, who was 3 at the time of making this, had fun with the polymer clay. And my 8-year-old at the time is starting to make her doll. She's looking beautiful. I'll keep you guys posted on that one. So when it's clay time, it's playtime. And the buckets are looking good. I actually asked my kids what I should put on the bucket first, and my son was like, dinosaurs. And my daughter's like, tigers. I'm like, guys, can we have something underwater, please? Can we keep in line? And then they suggested the turtles and whatever's coming next. Can you guess what's next? Let's move on to the next ones. So we're now onto the yellow bucket, and we're going to be using pink clay. What kind of design would you guys put on the buckets? And if you did want one of these yourselves, remember you can customize them. You can private message me because these buckets will be available in my Etsy store as a set of 3 or as the big bundle, which you'll get to see in the final video. So you got to be patient. So make sure you are following me along on Etsy, here on my socials, all of that good stuff. But anywho, back to the bucket. I'm going to tell you guys, I am going to be making an octopus, just a fun size kid octopus without all of the tentacles. Okay, we're just going to get a few because 8 was going to be a little bit too much for me. But this was so much fun, guys. I swear these buckets are absolutely adorable. Okay, I think 5 is going to be perfect for this. Look, guys, stop, behave. And I want these to look cartoony and fun. So I'm going to put some little fun eyes in here. Just poke those in. Oh, hello. Summertime buckets, anyone? Buckets, anyone? Look, It's got a little face. I almost want to name the damn thing. Hello, buddy. Shall we name it, guys? Is this too much? Can we name an octopus? Can we? Goodness me, I need to get a grip of myself. Okay, let's put the octopus on the bucket because I am just wild right now with giddiness and excitement. Does that ever happen to you guys when you're creating something and it comes out exactly how you want it to? And you're just like, wow, it's a thing. It's a whole thing. Yes, very, very happy. And this is sitting on there just perfectly. Oh, absolutely love it. And in hindsight, the rest of the tentacles would be behind anyway. You know what I mean, folks? So, and for my final bucket, it's the green bucket with the yellow clay on top. And guys, I'm just going to tell you straight up, we are going to make a starfish. Yes, or something that resembles a starfish. So I'm just pinching the clay around and trying to get that starfish type shape. And again, you know, we're going to have to get a little face on there. You know it. You just know it. So after a considerable amount of time trimming and cutting and rehashing, I think we've got a pretty decent shape here, guys. A pretty decent shape. Now I'm just going to add any of the little details that you'd get, the little texture bumps. But yeah, let's clean that up. Let's get a face on it. I apologize for the blurriness of the camera sometimes. It's super annoying. It's like when I put the piece close to the camera, it just gets blurry. But look, here we go. Our little face on our little starfish. Again, I feel like these guys need names. They're just too damn cute for me. I just love it. Absolutely love it. Now I can stick this on the bucket. I got the fever. It looks like it's a little dancing starfish on the bucket. It really, this brings me joy and happiness, guys. So much joy. Now, at long last, we can actually get these guys in the oven. But first, we need to make the spades. So just like before, I put the spades onto the clay and cut them out using my template. Just going to sculpt and reshape these to preference. I find it easier holding my clay on this blade and just bringing it right up to my face. So this helps me get the shape a little bit more. When it comes to making the shapes, I think it's a preference thing. Like what style you like, what kind of bucket you want, what's the purpose of your bucket, you know? So this is where you can totally have fun and just reshape to preference. And once all of my clay is baked, it's time for me to use some UV resin to give it that nice little gloss and that extra protection. So for part of the set that I'm making, I actually broke off one of the handles because this piece is actually going to be inside the bucket, which we'll see later. But now I'm just going to glaze these with my UV resin. I'm going to do this to the bucket and all of the spades. I'm going to put this under the light and let it cure. Okay, so while everything's curing, it's time for me to prepare what I want inside my bucket. So I've got these little shell things. It comes part of my nail art. So I wanted to use some of those to put inside the bucket along with some sand. And so for the sand, I'm going to be using some hamster desert sand. This is just something you can find if you've got pets or hamsters. It's really cheap and it's really cool for hamsters to play around in. I do love hamsters. I did have a few. I don't anymore, but I might get them again. They're absolutely adorable. Gone off topic. That's what I'm going to be using to make the sand today. And also with the shells, they come out silver, so I spray painted them white, and then I'm going to just use a mixture of different acrylic paints to paint the actual shells. I'm just going to mix the brown and white paints together to get a nice cream color. I'm also going to add a dash of orange in there just to heat up the color a little bit and get that shell kind of color that I'm looking for. And then I'm just going to paint over my shells, set them, let them dry, and add any extra paint if I need to. I'm going to use this same technique to paint my sand as well. First, I'm going to get the color that I want my sand to be, just mixing a few different tones and colors together until I'm happy with it. And then I'm just going to add some of my hamster sand to it until I've got the color that I want. And this is starting to look really, really good. Now I'm going to add some tacky glue to the sand because I want to put the sand in the bucket. So I've got my gluey sand paste and I'm going to just put this in the bucket, and you can see how small and refined it looks. You could use real sand. I've not tried this with real sand, but I do like the look of it. It feels more to scale. So now I'm just going to push this right down, and because I've added the glue, that's going to dry really nice and hard. I'm now going to add some of my UV resin to a small section of the sand because I want to place the handle of my spade in the sand. I place the spade where I want it to be in the bucket, and now I'm going to go over it with another layer of UV resin because I want this to cure and be extra secure. And here's how our little beauty looks so far. So good, right? So now it's time for me to add the shells. I'm just going to be using my UV resin again, putting another layer on the top of the sand, and then just placing my shells wherever I want them in the sand. As I said, with this project, with this one in particular, this is going to be something that you can get in my Etsy store. So I want one bucket that's going to be full of sand, and there's going to be 2 buckets that are free for you to design and craft and do what you like with it. Unless you have any separate requests, as I said, you can always DM me and suggest I want all of my buckets full with sand. It's completely up to you. Just let me know. Again, this looks super cool. Now we're just gonna let it cure. And here is our cute little bucket of sand. Oh my gosh, it's so damn cute. The handles can move on the bucket as well. It's sweet. Gotta love it, babe. Gotta love it. So these 3 here will be available in my Etsy store. 1 full with sand and the handle in it, and 2 free roaming. There is only a limited amount made of these, so you will have to request if you do want more. And also the main bundle with all of the summer gear will be coming soon and available in my Etsy store. I do hope you got some useful tips and ideas depending on what materials you like to work with. There's a variety for us all, so if you want to craft and create them yourself, please go ahead and do, and I would love to see them. You can join my Facebook group, Think Big, Build Small, our mini private group where you can go ahead and share any of the minis you create, and also join me on Patreon. Check out the link in the description for everything that I've used in today's project, and also keep a lookout for the whole of this summer bundle coming very soon. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've got some value from it, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye bye. Like, share, subscribe.